My name is Cleo Reese. I am from here, the Fort McMurray First Nation. It's located on the Gregor Lake Reserve in northern Alberta, just south of Fort McMurray. And I was born here, and I lived away for many years and came back in 2006. So I've been here ever since.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Healing Walk and how that began and how it's evolved?
Well, the Healing Walk began 6 years ago, which would make it 2009. Yeah, so 2009, it began with a group of people who were meeting. We had a group. It was called, or we still have it. That group is still very active. It's called the Keepers of the Athabasca Watershed Council, and basically it's watershed people that live in the Athabasca River watershed. It's a huge area, and it extends from Jasper, where the glacier starts the river, and goes right up to Fort Chipewyan, where it empties out into the river, empties into the lake Athabasca. So all along the river, of course, there are communities, and we have membership from most of the communities in that Athabasca River watershed. And we also have people involved who are from organizations or NGOs that are involved in environmental movements and water rights, that kind of thing. And it just interested people. And then they all include, they could be First Nations, allies and friends, non-First Nations people, Métis. So there's a lot of people in the membership, and we've been meeting since 2006. I got involved in around 2007, 8, and we have an active organization that meets regularly, fundraises for various events. Lately, the organization has been going into looking at renewable energy and seeing what they could do, and they've started projects like in Fort Chipewyan and other places with solar and those kinds of things. They have meetings throughout the year. It's connected to the larger Keepers of the Water movement, which is all in the northern part of not just Alberta but Canada. And it hopes to encompass all the watersheds one day, and so that the people who live in the different watersheds do have a voice. All these watersheds that we have in northern Alberta, they all flow into the Mackenzie Basin and go out to the ocean, the Bering Sea, or the Arctic Ocean. So that's where it flows north from here, starting from Jasper, Alberta. So so we are connected to the bigger Keepers of the Water, which has an annual meeting, and this year it was held in Bushy River, which is located in northwest Alberta, in a small town, or near a small town called High Level. And so quite a few members usually attend those, so they've been to that meeting. So we decided to go ahead and have a different kind of healing walk here in our community. We had started, like I said, in 2009 to have the Healing Walk, and the Healing Walk was born from discussions that we've had with people in the Keepers of the Athabasca Watershed Council, and interested people like from our community here. And we were speaking about the rapid pace of industry, of the oil industry in this area, and what's going on. It just seems so fast and so overwhelming that people felt they had to do something to bring awareness, to see what could be done about it, to at least have people's awareness raised so that they can make decisions about what happens in their communities and in their country. and somebody mentioned that we should have a walk. And we'd never done a walk. We'd done tours and things like that. And yeah, we thought we should do it. It just seemed to be the thing to do, and everyone agreed. And we started getting our ideas together. And a few months later, we had picked a time in, trying to remember, it was June or July for the first one. And so for the very first walk, we had at least about 200 people show up. And we had chosen the area around the Syncrude Suncor tailings pond, where they have the huge open pit mining, because it's just more visible and we don't have to go off the road to really see the impact. So we chose that area, and it's almost a 13-kilometer walk around where we can look around, walk around where the highway actually loops before it goes up north, and then it goes back south. So it was a place where we could actually walk, and we decided to walk because it just brought us more in touch with the land. It gave us that time to also reflect and think as we walked, because it took 5 to 6 hours for some people. When you're in a big crowd, it takes longer. So I'm sure with one person walking along, it's really not very far, but with a big, large group, it is far. But we made stops because the journey was called the Healing Walk. So it's for healing of the land. So if the land is healed, if the land is okay, looked after, the people are okay. But if the land needs healing, the people are going to need healing too. So that was really our reasoning behind using that word healing, and we wanted to make it clear that it was not a protest. It was not a protest against the oil companies. It was something that we wanted to connect with the spirit of the land, and that would help not just the land but ourselves in the healing process, because the industry is a very invasive industry. It cuts into the land, it digs things up, it changes the landscape, it destroys the landscape. We're in a sensitive wetland area, and it's going to change the land itself, whether it may be a muskeg or just a boreal forest. It's going to impact it for a long, long time to come, and it'll do a lot of damage. It has done a lot of damage. It continues to do a lot of damage. But so we wanted that to be brought out, that we wanted to look after the land and not harm it further, and see that it doesn't get harmed further. And we had to do it in a non-violent ways, and to us, just using the land, walking on the land, that tells others that we want to have that connection and send out that message. The first year we had started out, and we had ceremonies, we had prayers, we had medicine people with us. When we were speaking before the actual walk itself, we were visited by a bear that came out and looked around and then took off again. And when we were gathering to walk, and we looked up, and there was this eagle, and just watching us and circling around, and so that became our emblem, I guess. The eagle and the bear, very important sacred animals to us, and we use those two animals as our kind of our spirit guides. So we began the first year, and then it kept going. Finally, on the 5th year, which was 2 years ago, No, last year. Yeah, last year. Um, 2014. The groups decided that that would be the last year. It was felt that the message had gone out, that it had engaged locals and the local communities. It had gotten the attention, and many people wanted to focus on different things throughout the year, that rather than put a lot of energy into one main event in the year. And it was decided that that would be the last healing walk, was last year. I just want to mention, on the 4th year of the healing walk, incidentally, this is when my grandson was born. Just before the healing walk started, like 2 days before, or a day, yeah, it might be 2 days before, July the 4th, 2013, my daughter came up from BC. She lives in Vancouver Island, and she was pregnant. And her family came up to visit, and they decided they would stay so she could have her baby here, and they wouldn't travel back. And they came sometime early June, and we were having the healing walk in early July. So she was very close to having the baby, and when she knew that she wanted to have it here, she decided she would like to have it in the teepee. She got herself a teepee. They put the teepee up on Indian Beach, which is part of the Fort McMurray First Nation reserve land, right by the lake, Gregor Lake, and had the teepee up there. And people knew that she was going to be having a baby, and she went into labor early July the 4th, and people came and gathered around. There were campers, many campers. They're all ready to go for the healing walk, and they gathered around. They knew it was going to happen, and the night, it started getting dark. We had people coming in, praying with us, singing, bringing their thoughts and prayers and energies there, and it was quite an amazing, powerful experience. And then the baby was born just around midnight, so it was July the 4th, just around midnight, and it was thundering and lightning outside. So the baby became he who brings the thunder. It's a Dene name and a Cree name, and he's got 2 names because there are Dene people here and Cree people, and we're Cree. And so he was born, and it was quite an exciting and profound experience.
That's great. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
sharing that story in the car.
Yeah. And then he came back last year for the last healing walk with his mom, my daughter, and some of her other children, and they attended the healing walk last year, and then this year, which was the 6th year, we weren't going to have a healing walk, but we decided rather late in the year that we would go ahead and have some kind of a gathering. And we weren't sure what to call it, so we call it the healing gathering, because we wanted to keep the idea of the healing part there. The spirit of the healing walk was still there, so we knew that it wouldn't be like hundreds of people on the healing walk. Rather than that, we would do our journey over there and make our stops to the 4 directions in that area where we normally walk, and put down our medicines and have our prayers. And so we've continued on that spirit, but also the whole thing is having people gather together, to be together for a cultural, spiritual experience. And we had a a great location to do it in. We got my cousin Jimmy Allen, James Woodward, to he offered to put up his property because he has a beautiful, huge piece of land right by the lake, and it just seemed to be a really good spot to have it this year. And so we knew that there were people who were doing different things, like the tar sands ride, bikers, people riding bicycles from along the pipeline route, and to bring the message of no pipelines, and let's talk to people, see what could be done about it. We knew they were coming, and we planned for their arrival here, and they came, and it was great, and it was a beautiful experience, and we've been able to share and work together. Part of this healing gathering was to bring in people who work with healing, either using medicine plants or the sweat lodge or the pipe ceremonies. We had all of that here, and it's a good start for just a different type of focus, rather than just the walk, but to look at all types of healing, and then how do we I guess get it out there to other people, other communities, to the public in general, to let them know that we're doing this. It's something that I guess we did speak about it. We also talked about the impact of the oil sands industry, or the what's going on in the tar sands here, and that it's a global issue. It affects everybody because we're all dependent on oil. Not that we want to be, but that's how the transportation is built around, is oil and gas, and we do want to get the message out, so maybe we have to look at other means of I guess transportation to let people know that we don't want to be dependent on fossil fuels anymore, because we know the harm that it's doing to the environment, and to the mining operations involved in destroying ecosystems, destroying land and water, getting the water pollution, water contamination from the industry, and from other means. We don't want that to continue, so I would like to just stress that we want to work towards renewable, stop the non-renewable and go towards renewable types of energy, and sustainability in a long term for the next 7 generations and more.
How on board, excuse me, how receptive are the nations here to renewable energy and sustainability within the nations?
Well, it's something that people have been aware of for many years, but I think they've never really understood the viability of it, because that's never been really stressed here. It's just go with the flow, oil and gas, build bigger and better homes, more vehicles, that kind of thing. Necessity has forced industry to build more fuel efficient motors and engines and whatever, and yes, that's true, but we still see oil as not being there forever, and it's doing a lot of damage in the meantime. So some communities are looking at other means of energy. We have people, like there's a community in BC, a First Nations community, that's working with solar energy and I believe wind. It's not done on a big scale right now, but I think just by starting some projects, such as what they're doing in Fort Chipewyan with the Keepers of the Athabasca, their solar energy project is going ahead, and it's a start. And when people see that, they're going to see, you know, the benefits of doing it, of not relying on non-renewable energy. So I think that is a focus of Keepers of the Athabasca, Keepers of the Water Movement, and many other groups, NGO groups around Alberta and many other places. I myself am very interested in doing any type of renewable energy program here in our community. I'd be willing to be a part of that. It's getting the message out that yes, we can do it. I mean, we can look at, you know, countries like Germany that's already very solar powered by the power of the sun's rays. Big countries can do it. Why can't we just start here and start small in different communities and just keep going? The more people involved, the better. And it's very new because there hasn't been an actual real concerted effort to do it here yet, but there is movement towards that, so it's going to happen.
What's the climate of, okay, so there's potential renewable energy within nations, and then there's the actual city of Fort McMurray. Does it seem like there's an opening for renewable energy within the city of Fort McMurray?
Well, I certainly hope so. I haven't seen any policy decision made to go that way, but I do see some hopeful signs, such as the city does not use plastic bags anymore. So it stopped using. So if you go to Fort McMurray, you cannot have, bring back 20 plastic bags because you have to have your own bag. And I mean, there's so many of those recyclable bags out there. Like, it's almost becoming as bad as plastic, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. And I think they're made out of recycled materials already. So so that's one step, and I think all cities should do that. I agree with it completely. It's one step. Let's do another one. So I don't know what Fort McMurray's plan, but I would be in favor of anything that would cut down the use of plastic and waste.
Right. Yeah.
Better recycling facilities and less waste.
Yeah. Do you? You yesterday you had mentioned that there's kind of the way that the treaty system is set up, and that First Nations have the ability to reclaim land when leases are up and this type of thing. How significant of a strategy do you think that reclaiming land or taking back land is in terms of stopping the bleeding or stopping the damage stopping further expansion of the tar sands?
I think it's very important. I think that, we used to use the land all the time in the past. It was a nomadic kind of culture, because we traveled from here to there for either hunting or fishing, or then it became trapping, and trapping became part of the lifestyle. So it's not so much heavy emphasis on trapping, because people aren't making their living by selling furs anymore, but just keeping the culture, or keeping our knowledge, our traditional knowledge alive by living according to how our ancestors lived, not year round, because we don't live in teepees and tents anymore, or bark homes or that sort of thing, but to keep the knowledge alive and that connection to the land is very important. So in order to do that, you have to be out on the land to actually do things out there, like either you building shelters, hunting. That's becoming difficult because of all the cut lines of all the different industry developments, well pads everywhere, oil drilling sites. There's so much of it out there now. And then of course with that comes pollution of the water, because it does affect the water and the air, and that's going to affect the fish and the birds and the local wildlife. So how do we keep that from getting further destroyed? We have to do something about it, and if we have to go out there and live on the land and look after it, then that's what we have to do. The treaties did not say that we do not have use of our land. They only they have specific instructions and that we will not stop the settlers from settling on certain lands, but it did not say we could not use our own land, whether whether it's on reserve or off, because it's still in our traditional territory, and it encompasses quite a large part of northern Alberta. So all the First Nations have a large traditional area that they use because they traveled a lot within that area. And so now it might even be extended because we have to go a lot further to go hunting.
Right.
There's less game animals here.
Has the strategy of taking back land or reclaiming or occupying or using the traditional lands been effective in blocking any expansions that you're aware of, or is it something that
no,
you're kind of
I
a new
think
realization?
I think that's the hope of some of the First Nations, but it not that I know that it's blocked anything. I know that any kind of stopping of projects have been done in the court so far, or just through the First Nations themselves not supporting an application, like saying no to it. That has stopped some expansion, but I see it as a strategy that we should be going ahead anyway, regardless of whether the courts are doing it or not. I think it's not just to stop, but to safeguard, to look after the land.